You always pivot back to, but the real problem's Israel.
You're famous for interview style that begins with condemn this group, that group, that group. Let me finish before you keep suggesting I'm supporting October 7th, which I have not.
Sounds like you're justifying it to me.
You know what? Can I finish a sentence?
Booby traps are not allowed if they are genuinely indiscriminate.
You don't think going off in a grocery store is indiscriminate?
No, actually.
I'm not playing this game, Piers, because I'm not here to talk about the rules of war.
You say, Mehdi, all roads lead to the occupation.
Yes.
Okay? Israel would say all roads lead to Iran.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied.
Who cares what they say? I'm curious what you think Israel could do that would pass your test.
Probably not much. I'm as close. I'm as close to a pacifist as you can get.
Just saying, I want it, or I want peace and joy. You sound like Kamala Harris. Well, two seismic issues are dominating the global news agenda. What happens next in each of them will have a profound impact on the state of the world. The first, of course, is the forthcoming US presidential election. The second is the crisis now engulfing the Middle East. My next guest has strident views on both these big stories. He's not shy about airing them. Joining me in the studio is editor and CEO of Zeteo News, Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi, how are you?
Good to see you,
We
Piers.
have never met in person.
No.
Until now.
No, Twitter makes you think we have.
It was great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Great
Good
to
be
meet
in London.
you. Always enjoy our debates, which they are. Let's start with what's happening in Lebanon, because we may find some areas of agreement here, I suspect. But first of all, Hezbollah. Do you see a distinction between Hezbollah and, say, Hamas?
In what sense?
In what they are, what they represent, how they have acted?
I mean, they're very different groups. They operate in different places, in different contexts. I guess what they have in common is that they both came out of Israel's occupation of their land, right? Hamas comes out of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, and many people are not aware of the fact that Israel occupied Lebanon, southern Lebanon, for 18 years, from 1982 to 2000 when they withdrew, although the Lebanese argue that there's still an occupation of a piece of Lebanese land called the Sheba Farms. So in that sense, they're similar. They're obviously different in some of their tactics. They're different religions. Well, they're different sects, I apologize, not different. They're both Muslim, but one is Shia, one is Sunni. They're both backed by Iran. I mean, look, there's similarities, differences. I think what's really interesting this time round is we've seen for a year Israel killing thousands of civilians in Gaza and saying, well, Hamas is to blame because of human shields, because of tunnels. That argument just does not work in Lebanon. They've killed 550 people, Piers, on Monday. An insane amount of people in a single day, one of the highest single-day death tolls in modern warfare. Almost all of them civilians, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry, which is not Hezbollah, by the way. You know, they always say Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza. So I think what we've seen is so phenomenally bad on Israel's end and so little defense. You know, October 7th was used, as you and I have discussed before, as the excuse for killing tens of thousands of Palestinians.
Well, I would categorise it differently. I don't think they used it as an excuse to go and kill tens of thousands of Palestinians. They responded to one of the most egregious terror attacks of modern times.
But when does the response end? We're nearly a year in.
Well, that's the question. That is the question.
Well, that's when it becomes an excuse. When you carry on killing and killing.
Is it an excuse, or is it that they are wedded to the elimination of Hamas because Hamas has persistently said, we want to keep doing the same thing over and over again? And there's a correlation with Hezbollah, whose charter is very explicit. They stand for the eradication of Israel. I mean, that's what they're about.
That doesn't justify killing 500 people in a single day, does it?
I didn't say it did, but
that's what bothers me. That's what happened this week. That's the big story. Hezbollah's charter is irrelevant to what we're talking about. That's not why they killed 500 people on Monday, Piers. I mean, Hezbollah's charter's been around for years.
I don't think it's irrelevant that you have a terror group on your doorstep who are wedded to your extinction. Why is that irrelevant?
I think the language you use is loaded, Piers. You say on your doorstep. Do you know they did a poll of Americans a while back who thought that Palestinians were occupying Israel? When we talk about this stuff, we make it sound like Israel is the one being occupied, besieged. Israel's the one that's occupying the West Bank and Gaza, the longest military occupation in the world, going back to 1967. Israel is the country that occupied southern Lebanon. I mean, everything, the world did not begin on October the 7th. 1978, Israel invades southern Lebanon. 1982, Israel invades southern Lebanon. Sabra and Shatila massacre. 2006, Second Lebanon War, murder 100 people.
But you always make it sound like they're just doing this for the sake of it. They're not.
What are they doing it for?
Well, they've been provoked by Hezbollah.
Hezbollah didn't exist in 1978, Piers.
OK, I'm talking about the specifics of going on now. The provocation since October the 7th. Hezbollah's first response to October the 7th was to unleash rockets on Israel.
That's not true.
On October the 8th.
That's not true. That's not true.
That is what happened.
Where did they fire the first rocket?
They fired rockets on the 8th.
Where?
Well, you tell me.
No, you just said they fired at Israel. Where?
Well, they fired in the direction of Israel.
Where did they hit? They fired at the
if you know
Sheba
the
Farms.
answer, tell me.
I do. They fired at the Sheba Farms, which, as I said earlier, is an area of Syria. Well, the Lebanese claim it's Lebanon. Syria claims it's Lebanon. Israel says no and is occupying the Sheba Farms. They fired at Israeli military installations in the Sheba Farms. Now, have they got fired in Israel?
So
since?
they were firing at Israel. They were firing
Yes.
at an area that Israel says is theirs.
No, Israel doesn't say that. Israel says it's Syria's. Because remember, Piers, Israel is occupying Syria and the West Bank and Gaza. And Lebanon would argue parts of Lebanon. This is the problem, right? The core of the problem is Israel's territorial expansionism.
It's a mess.
Attacks, not a mess. It's Israel occupying multiple Arab lands, which leads to quote-unquote resistance or quote-unquote terrorism, whichever word. I don't care what word you want to use right now. But that is the core, right? You had John Mearsheimer on the show this week, made the same point. Deal with the occupation, then you deal with the violence. And look, has Hezbollah fired into Israel at civilian targets? Yes, I don't agree with that. But the reality is 82% of the exchange of fire between Lebanon and Israel since October the 7th has been done by Israel.
Okay.
82%.
But
is that not a provocation of
Let
Hezbollah?
me finish my point, which is that since October the 8th, 19,000 missiles, rockets have come from Hezbollah to Israel, right?
But way more from Israel into Lebanon.
Well, I'm sure.
82%.
Of course they've responded. What else are they supposed to do?
82%.
But
This is not two equal sides.
So they can't defend themselves.
But the vast majority of attacks is on Lebanon.
Okay, but would you condemn the firing of rockets by Hezbollah or not?
Of course, I condemn all attacks on civilian targets.
Well,
we know that, Piers. We've discussed this.
I'm going to come to Israel's response.
I don't come on shows to defend militant groups or foreign governments.
Okay. So
I come on shows to say, let's end the violence.
Yeah.
Let's sort out what the solution is.
Yeah.
Let's look at the root cause of the violence. It is undeniable that the root cause of the violence is Israel, Israel's occupation, the genocide in Gaza. What did the leader of Hezbollah say? He said, we won't fire any rockets if you end the killing in Gaza. What did the president of Iran say? We won't retaliate for what you did to Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil if you end the killing in Gaza. What did the Houthis say? We'll stop blocking ships if you end the killing in Gaza. Where do all roads lead back to?
Why would you believe any of those people?
I don't believe any of them. I'm Ronald Reagan.
You're citing them as if there's sort of gospel statements from people who have unimpeachable integrity.
I'll tell you why, if you let me finish. I'm Ronald Reagan.
A bunch of terrorists said, we won't do X, Y, Z if you do this.
I'm Ronald Reagan. I say verify. Call their bluff. If they're lying, call their bluff. Stop the Gaza fighting and then see what happens.
Yeah, but Israel has called Hamas's bluff.
When?
There was a ceasefire in place before October the 7th.
That's not true.
Well, it is true.
That's not true.
Well, it is true.
It's fundamentally false. They were attacking Palestinians the week before October the 7th. In September, you can Google it on that tablet. What's your definition of a ceasefire?
Well,
Israel gets to attack people and not the other way around.
Okay.
In September, hold on. In September, you just made a charge that's not true. There's a tablet there. You can Google it. Guardian headline, right there. You can go see the news report.
I don't Google during interviews.
Well, afterwards, everyone can. There's a Guardian headline, September 2023, a month before October the 7th. The headline is Palestinians shot in the ankles by Israel in Gaza, attacked. There were airstrikes in Gaza. And by the way, Gaza is not isolated. Gaza and the West Bank under international law are one entity. There were several hundred Palestinians killed in the West Bank before October.
But my point to you, Mehdi, is
so there was no ceasefire. You just can't say it's just not true.
They would say there was a ceasefire,
and it's not true.
We'd say otherwise.
The facts say otherwise, Piers.
But what I've noticed with you is you always downplay anything which might be deemed by Israel to be provocation.
No.
You're always
not at all. Did I downplay October 7th? I don't think I ever have on your show or anywhere else. It's a horrible crime.
But what you do, in your debating style, and it's an impressive debating style, but you always pivot back to, but the real problem's Israel. Yeah, but the real problem's Israel.
Hold on. If we're going to talk about styles, Piers, you're famous for interview style that begins with condemn this group, that group, that group. On Monday, 500... Hold on. Let me finish my point, then you come back in. 500 people were killed on Monday. 100 women, 50 children. I assume you condemn that and don't support the killing of civilians in Lebanon, right? 500 people died. That's the equivalent of 30,000 Americans or 6,000 Brits in a day.
Sure.
And yet we started this interview with Hezbollah Charter. So if you're going to talk about styles, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on 500 people dead.
Okay. Let me come back to the week before, where 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted specifically.
How do you know that?
What do you mean? How do I know that?
You just said 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted.
How many was it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Made the claim.
That is what's been reported.
By
Do
who?
you dispute that?
Yeah, I dispute everything Israel says. They've lied for a year, Piers.
You don't know the real number.
But I didn't give a number. You did.
Well, what has been the number from the other side?
I didn't give a number. You said 3,000 terrorists. I'm wondering why.
That is what's been reported.
No, it's not reported. It's what's said by Israel, or it's what's said by people speaking on behalf of Israel.
So
was a little girl
Israel
who died?
Hang on. Israel hasn't even said it did it.
They have in private. It's been reported widely
to you?
No, to the American government.
Okay, but don't say they said it publicly. They haven't.
But
Obviously,
have
I
been killed.
believe they did it, right? But
I believe they did it
but
too.
You're saying they said this in public.
You just gave a 3,000 number, and I'm wondering. I just saw a little girl's funeral last week. Was she a Hezbollah terrorist in your view?
No.
So then why did you say 3,000 terrorists? There was a kid killed.
I was about to say that in the process of targeting very specifically, in an extraordinarily whichever way you look at it.
In a terror attack.
Well, that's what I'm going to come to. So they target 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists with their pagers, walkie-talkies, and so on. In the process, a small, comparative to that number, a small number of civilians get killed, which is obviously deplorable. But my point to you is, if someone's been chucking rockets over for a year at you and your people, you've had to displace 60,000 people from the north of your country because of his relentless bombardment, and you eventually respond in such a precise, targeted fashion, right? And in the process, some civilians are killed, which is never acceptable, can never be condoned, never be supported. But if it is right, as has been widely reported by all mainstream media, that 3,000 terrorists
people associated with Hezbollah. Not everybody in Hezbollah is a terrorist.
Okay.
Like a driver, a nurse.
3,000 members of Hezbollah were targeted, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that is, some people have claimed is unlawful?
Yep.
You've said it's a terror attack, so you think it was illegal.
Yep.
But I would say that's not. I mean, I would say that if you look at that in totality, they are responding to rocket attacks all year, and they are being extremely precise, unlike what they've been doing in Gaza, where I do not accept that Israel has been doing this precision targeting they keep talking about, and I've held them to account for that. I do think in this particular occasion, they were extremely precise, and it was a brilliant piece of warfare, right, if you want to call it that. Notwithstanding, I don't like any war, nor do you. But my point is, surely that is justified. I mean, in some parts of this, you have to say Israel's entitled to defend itself.
So actually, Lebanon is the one that needs to defend itself, as we say, 500 people killed on a day. Look, you are right. You have held. I've watched your interviews with Israeli spokespersons. You have held them to account on their nonsense about casualty numbers. But let me just say 3 very brief things on that. Number one, you said just a moment ago, when they eventually respond, you use that phrase eventually. That's just factually inaccurate. We already discussed.
No, you talked about
82% of the attacks. They have been bombing Lebanon for a year. Now, you can say who started it, whatever. I'm not talking about. But they've been attacking Lebanon.
But this is a significant escalation.
Yes, but 5 days after October the 7th, or 6 days after, they killed a Reuters video journalist in southern Lebanon, a man called Issam Abdullah, killed, according to Reporters Without Borders, targeted by Israel. According to the UN, a war crime, right? So they have been killing people in Lebanon who have nothing to do with Hezbollah for a year now. So let's not say eventually. Number two, I would say, yes, it's an act of terror. And that's just not my view. You know Leon Panetta, former Obama defense secretary, former head of the CIA. When the former head of the CIA comes out and says Israel is committing an act of terror, I think we should take that seriously. But it's not just him. A group of UN special rapporteurs on human rights and extrajudicial killings put out a statement.
But many other people have said it was not an act of
course, and that's the problem with international law. People can argue it all ways. You know that you and I are not lawyers, but we know that lawyers can argue.
But do you not think that action was justified?
No, of course not. I don't think you should booby-trap devices. It's against international law to use booby traps. I think I'm actually petrified, separate to the politics of the Middle East, Piers, I'm actually petrified at the ability of governments to use technology and surveillance to track us and now kill us. I think there's a wider discussion to be had. I think the idea that Israel keeps opening the doors to all sorts of new precedents that other governments will run with and we will regret. I think, going into the supply chain of devices, phones, beepers, whatever, pagers, I think that's very, very worrying. I also think from a practical point of view, it's not targeted. If you blow up a guy with a pager, even if you think he's a terrorist or a terrorist leader, you don't know if he's driving, he's at an intersection, he's about to crash his car into children crossing the road. We saw them going off in grocery stores. It's taken out people's eyes, fingers. No, I don't think it's targeted. I think it's barbaric. I think it's illegal. And I also think, look, I say this all the time, even if I was an Israeli, I would not support this. It doesn't make Israel safer. Do you think Israel's safer today?
Would you support then any military?
They just fired a rocket at Tel Aviv.
Let me ask you, would you then, by your criteria, is there any military response that Israel can give, first to what Hamas did on October the 7th, and second to what Hezbollah has been doing ever since? Is there any military response Israel can do which, in your eyes, would be justified?
Well, I don't accept the loaded question. You say response. Israel is the aggressor in all of these places. As I say,
they are illegally the aggressor on October the 7th, was it?
Well, it was actually, because it was occupying Gaza and it was besieging Gaza for 20 years, and even an Israeli general.
You're sounding like you think it was justified what Hamas did.
No.
It's one or the other.
Why? How is it justified?
So it wasn't justified?
Of course not. I've said that many times.
So was Israel not entitled to respond?
No, but I'm questioning you use the word response. Response implies everything starts on October 7th.
No,
I don't accept your timeline.
I've never said that.
Well, you keep saying response.
to that specific terror attack, in a way that if in England somebody suddenly launched an attack on our people and they killed 1,200 and wounded nearly 7,000, I would absolutely expect my government to respond with substantial force. Would you?
Yes, but Britain...
So you would?
Hold on. But is Britain occupying territory in that scenario? Because that's the key point here. It's Shlomo Brom...
It's dangerous wording.
It's not dangerous, because I'm
making it sound like... I don't disagree with you.
I'm going to quote... If you let me finish, before you keep suggesting I'm supporting October 7th, which I have not...
Sounds like you're justifying it to me.
Well, you're saying, not paying attention.
They're being occupied.
They are occupied, and they're not occupied.
I think they probably are, yeah.
Not probably. The ICJ says they're occupied. Yeah. Shlomo Brom, who's one of the former top Israeli generals, one of their big strategists, said after October the 7th, what did you expect? If you keep people under military occupation,
is that what you think?
They will rise up. Yeah, of course. There's always going to be terrorism.
What do you expect?
Yeah, there's always going to be terrorism and violence as long as you oppress people.
On that scale, you expected that?
No, obviously, I don't expect the details, but do you expect Palestinians to fight back? Of course you do. Everyone who's sane, who looks at this conflict from American presidents downwards, would say the root cause of the violence has to be ending the conflict.
I agree.
So then, talking about tit-for-tat responses,
but I also think if you go back
sense.
If you go back to the start in 1948, which I've had many scholars on from both sides of this, probably the most interesting piece I read about this was Jonathan Friedland of The Guardian, who's a Jewish journalist, who concluded, you can construct, if you're reasonably fair-minded about all this, you can construct a solid argument for both sides to feel aggrieved from the very start of this conflict.
Fair enough. And that's, that's a different argument. I'm talking about what you talk about now. My point is,
when people say it didn't start October the 7th...
Well, I'm not even going back to 1948. I'm talking about 20 years of Gaza under blockade.
I know.
Piers. Yeah, open-air prison camp, to quote David Cameron, that well-known pro-Palestinian lefty.
But also Hamas, in that process since 2005, have clearly run Gaza in a despicable manner.
Agreed.
You wouldn't disagree?
No.
So it's not all Israel's fault, is it?
Well, no, because you're mixing different things up. Is Hamas...
You're always very keen to put it all on Israel.
No, because if we're talking about...
I try and be a little bit more like, hang on. When you commit a terror attack on the scale of October 7th...
You both sides occupation and illegal...
No, I don't.
Yeah, you are. You just said,
I don't.
I try and be fair. You can't be fair to an occupier. By the way, when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, this is what frustrates me. And I know my friend Owen Jones sat here and said the same thing to you. When we talk about Russia, Ukraine, you don't do both sides. You blame Russia as the invader and occupier. You don't do that with Israel. That is the double standard on your part.
No,
I try and be consistent, Piers. I'm morally consistent. I say Russia... Hold on, let me finish the sentence. Russia illegally invaded and occupied Israel and illegally annexed to Crimea. And Israel is doing the same thing in the West Bank, Gaza, the Golan Heights.
As you know, they are completely different.
Yeah, Israel's worse. It's been going on much longer. And people living under much worse conditions. And they've killed more kids.
There is no similarity in these two situations.
Agreed. Israel's is worse.
It's not.
How many kids have been killed in Ukraine versus Gaza?
Well, in 1 year.
Ever.
In 1 year?
Ever. Take whatever point you want. More kids have been killed in Gaza than in Ukraine.
Okay.
Every human rights group agrees with that.
What's happened in Ukraine? We can come to Ukraine. What happened in Ukraine is a Russian dictator invaded illegally.
We agree on Ukraine.
Yeah.
But we don't agree on Israel because you're not consistent.
I think Israel is much more complicated.
That's complicated, as my friend Ta-Nehisi Coates pointed out the other way, is just a good way of avoiding attributing moral responsibility. It's complicated. No, it's not complicated, actually. Israel is the occupier under international law. Israel is the one killing the vast majority of civilians. Right now, it's not a liberal democracy. It's run by neo-fascists now.
Well, I don't disagree with you. There are some right-wing headbangers on that cabinet. I also think that Netanyahu has to go. I also think the whole of Hamas have to go, right?
Under no scenario is it liberal democracy right now. Palestinians do not have the same rights.
But let me come back to my point about Hezbollah, because that's the most current part of this crisis over there. We'll cover all this. We've got plenty of time. With Hezbollah, my point to you would simply be that if someone does what Hezbollah did on October the 8th, has carried on doing it all year, they have a charter which says they want to eradicate Israel, you have to defend yourself. So the question then becomes, what type of defence or response or reaction or revenge, whatever you want to call it, I don't want to get caught in the semantics of a word, but what kind of thing can Israel do, given that direct threat to them, to their existence? And the same sort of ideology applies in argument to Hamas. But with Hezbollah specifically, this state within a state in Lebanon, which is far better armed, far more powerful, far more resourced.
Far more popular with the people, part of the government. It's much more part of Lebanese society.
And was created by 1,500 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
Supported, not created, but yes.
Well, they trained.
They're also indigenous to Lebanon.
They trained.
They're not a foreign force.
So my point is, what can Israel do that would actually tick your box of being justified?
My box is a very minimum box. My box is Hippocratic. Do no harm, don't kill civilians. So
you don't respond?
No. You don't respond. This is the same argument with Gaza. You don't respond by killing 40,000 people.
What do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do if you're Israel?
Target Hezbollah people.
How?
I don't know. Jonathan Conricus came on your show last week.
They couldn't have been...
IDF colonel. He said they're not in civilian areas, so we're able to target them. Okay, target them. Then if you want to target them, under the rules of war, you can target combatants. But Piers, hold on. You just said earlier. Let me finish my point. Then you come back in.
No, Mehdi.
Go on. Then I'm going to finish my point.
You literally just said you can target combatants.
Yes.
But when they did that last week with the walkie-talkies and pages, you said, no, that's a terror attack. It's illegal.
Hold on.
Couldn't there been a more precise targeting of combatants?
Hold on, because A, they didn't just target combatants, as we've just discussed. B, they did it in civilian areas. And C, they did it in violation of the amended Protocol 2 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, which doesn't allow booby traps.
So there is no...
I already explained the booby traps.
Actually, no, that's not true. It's not true.
Okay.
Booby traps are not allowed if they are genuinely indiscriminate in the way that they potentially...
You don't think going off in a grocery store is indiscriminate?
No, actually, I believe what I've seen...
You gave the British example earlier, Piers. Are you okay with someone blowing you up in Sainsbury's, the guy next to you, blowing you up in the aisle of Sainsbury's?
I believe that what has been reported, right, widely reported, is that 3,000 terrorist militants, Hezbollah members, whatever you want to call them, were very precisely targeted.
Are you saying people...
By your criteria...
Did they go off in grocery stores and hospitals?
If it's legal...
Piers, did they go off in grocery stores and hospitals? No, you brought up the UK earlier. We're in London right now. If I go from here to the local Sainsbury's to pick up some chocolate on the way out of the studio, and a terrorist is targeted next to me and they're blowing up in Sainsbury's and I lose my eyes, you're saying that's okay? No,
but if you have
Sounds like you're saying it's okay.
If those people in that grocery store are literally responsible for firing rocket after rocket at
You're okay with them being blown up with me? I'm just collateral damage.
I actually looked at what they did and I thought it was a very precisely targeted
What about the 500? What about the 500 civilians killed on Monday, which you just don't want to talk about?
No, I'm going to come to that.
You keep saying that. The time's nearly up. 500 people.
The time is not nearly up.
Well,
we'll be talking for literally 15 minutes.
Stop
racing the clock down.
I have another show to do, Piers.
Hang on.
500 people died on Monday.
I've come in early for you.
500.
I was looking for a thank you, Piers.
Thank you, Piers. 500 people were killed on Monday. You're not talking about that.
I am going to talk about
it sounds like you're justifying that.
I am going to talk about that.
I've not justified October 7th.
First of all, though, before we get to that, I just want to get inside your head about what you think is legitimate, because you said a very interesting thing. One, what they did was a terror attack, even though they would say they targeted specifically combatants, and that is lawful.
But that's not true, though. We know that's not true.
Well, it is true.
It's not true.
It is true. You can never...
Kids, doctors, nurses.
No, you can never target combatants and not involve civilians ever.
That's funny, because Israel were bragging, well, people on behalf of Israel.
Tell me one war where
that has happened. Ismail Haniyeh without collateral damage.
Tell me one.
Hold on, didn't they kill Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran without collateral damage?
Tell me one war where that's happened.
I just told you. You just interrupted me twice. Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran. There was no collateral damage. Now, I don't agree with that killing, but there was no collateral damage.
But to be clear, you think that the targeting of combatants is legitimate?
If you're in a war... Okay. And they are fighting with you, and they are fighters. Yeah, of course it's legitimate.
But you also think that when Israel targeted combatants from Hezbollah last week,
because I don't accept
in a very precise way,
it's
terrorism.
Yeah, I don't.
How can it be both?
Hold on. Leon Panetta says it's terrorism, the former head of the CIA, not just me. Well, you act like it's some crazy extreme view. If the head of the CIA, the former head of the CIA, is saying this is terrorism because it's
I want you to explain what is... So give me an example.
It's literally terror. People in Lebanon don't know what devices to use anymore.
You think killing... Well, Hezbollah don't know what devices to use.
By the way, I'm not playing this game, Piers, because I'm not here to talk about the rules of war. My position is, even if it's legitimate...
You just talked about them.
No, because I'm saying even if it's legitimate, even if I accepted the 3,000 is legitimate, which I don't, I still don't think they should do it.
But you said targeting...
Can I finish a sentence?
You said targeting militants, combatants, is lawful and justified.
Yes, but even then I don't think you should do it.
Okay.
You know what? Can I finish a sentence?
I think there's an inconsistency there.
No, I'm very consistent. I'm saying even if it's legitimate, which in this case it's not legitimate, let's say I take the saying it's legitimate, you still shouldn't do it because all it leads to is escalation. I don't want escalation in the Middle East. I don't want a regional war that America dragged into. I'm saying that the way of the gun, the military solution to everything, is a failure, whether you think it's moral or immoral.
How should Israel respond?
I've told you, end the occupation. You don't want to talk about the occupation, Piers. You don't want to talk about the 500 dead. I'm telling you that's the root cause. Israel wants to do everything except what every smart person is telling them to do. Even members of their own security establishment are telling them to do. End the occupation. And then see what happens.
You say...
Nobody's waking up in the morning saying we want to kill Israel for no reason.
You say, Mehdi, all roads lead to the occupation.
Yes.
Okay? Israel would say all roads lead to Iran.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied for 30
years. Who cares what they say?
Yeah, do you care what Russia says?
No.
This is what I'm saying. You're inconsistent. The occupier and the invader doesn't... I don't care
it's not a barbaric
So if you're a liberal democracy... First of all, they're not a liberal democracy. And second of all...
Well, they are.
No, they're not. They're an ethnocracy, but even if they were a liberal democracy, you don't get to invade other people's land. That's not an excuse. Piers, you sound like you're justifying an illegal military occupation here.
No, I'm not.
You just did. You said they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like you're justifying occupation.
You're extrapolating two things together. Why?
I said it's an occupation. You said, but they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like a justification for
I'm
occupation.
just coming back to one thing, because I'm curious what you think Israel could do that would pass your test.
It's probably not much. I'm as close
Nothing.
I'm as close to a pacifist as you can get. I think you only use
Pacifism
force
is not
to
allowing
defend yourself.
everyone else to attack you and to rape and murder and pillage you, to fire rockets all year.
Who's raping and
You don't
murdering?
think that's what Hamas did on October the
I
7th?
thought we were talking about Hezbollah. You're jumping around.
I'm talking about both.
You were talking about Hezbollah a moment ago.
It's the same. To me, it's the same.
But that's the problem. To you, it's the same. Everything's very simplistic.
Let me
the
explain
world
why.
is not simplistic.
Let me explain why. You have two.
Lebanon is way more complicated.
To me, you
than
have two groups of terrorists funded by Iran. They both are wedded to the existential removal and disintegration of all things Israel, and they're prepared to use a lot of violence to achieve that.
But not as much violence as Israel has used to occupy their land for 50 years in the case of Gaza and the West Bank.
So your argument is whatever Hamas has done and whatever Hezbollah does is justified.
No. The only person justifying violence here is you, Piers, not me. So I've not justified any violence today. You've justified terrorist attacks via pages. You seem to have justified the occupation. You won't even say occupation.
I do think the specific targeting of Hezbollah in the way that they did it...
Do you think it makes Israel safer?
That's a different question.
Well, that's the question that matters to me.
I think Israel feels...
There's no point doing all this,
and at the end
of the day, the war continues. I want to end the conflict, Piers.
So, of course, maybe this is...
Well, then escalations don't help. Israel is briefing the press, Piers.
Just saying, I want it, or I want peace and joy. You sound like Kamala Harris.
No, actually, Kamala Harris is funding Israel. She supports you, so that's the problem.
She doesn't support me.
She supports your position that Israel has a right to do this stuff. It doesn't have a right to do this stuff.
They have a right to do all of it. I've never said that.
Oh, you pick and choose which bits?
Yeah.
What do you think they have a right to do?
I think that they have been disproportionate in their response to Gaza.
That's very vague. What do you think they're allowed to do in Gaza? You made me very specific. What do you think they should specifically do in Gaza?
I think in Gaza that they were the victims on October the 7th.
You've already said that.
I know.
What should they do in Gaza?
So I think they are perfectly entitled to go after Hamas. What they're not entitled to do, in my estimation, is to level the whole of Gaza to the ground in the way they've been doing. Nor can they move vast numbers of Palestinian civilians to specific areas.
Those are war crimes.
And then bomb those areas as well.
And those are war crimes,
So on those things,
those
we
are war
agree.
crimes, yes?
Probably, yeah.
And what about in Lebanon?
In Lebanon,
they just killed 500 people.
There is, to me, a big difference.
50 children.
I'm about to answer you. I think there is a big difference between what they did in the targeting of the pages and what they did with the airstrikes, which were far more indiscriminate and killed far more civilians. I mean, and my question for Netanyahu, if he would dare to do an interview with me, which he now won't, but if he did, I would say, what are you trying to achieve here? Because it seems to me you're just levelling Gaza, killing tens of thousands of people in the process.
He's trying to stay in office.
You're never going to finish off Hamas completely. You're certainly not doing anything but, in my view, fueling their ideology. And you have no plan for what happens in Gaza afterwards.
Agreed.
And you have a bunch of right-wing nut jobs in your cabinet who actually do speak in quite a genocidal way. All of that I agree.
They are about Lebanon too, by the way. You know that, right? They're speaking about Lebanon in a genocidal way too.
I think there are people there who just want total war with everything to do with Palestinians.
But don't you think someone like you, with your huge platform, should be calling that out consistently?
I do, but I also think...
You just gave me a whole thing. Iran backs Hamas, Hezbollah, terrorism. That just sounds like an Israeli narrative.
You take one side completely.
Just like you do in Ukraine.
No, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm consistent. I take the side of the Ukrainian people under occupation and the Palestinian people under occupation. I'm consistent.
No, you're not. They're totally different situations.
You have to say that because you're not consistent.
And you have to say what you say.
No, but I literally described it. 2 people's under foreign occupation, 2 people's having their hospitals bombed, 2 people's having their kids killed, 2 people facing governments to say genocidal stuff. Yeah, I'm consistent.
One is a democracy and an ally of the West. And one is not.
Oh, ally of the West. What little slip in there? What's that got to do with anything? So allies of the West get to be genocidal?
No.
Why did you say ally of the West? Why is that relevant?
I don't believe what they're doing in
So if Russia was an ally of the West, they could kill people in Ukraine?
I don't believe what they're doing in Gaza is genocide. You do, I don't.
Well,
genocide is the complete...
Put genocide to one side. Whether we agree or not on genocide, and it is genocidal.
It's not genocide.
You just said they're your ally of the West. Why is that relevant?
I think it's important that you support...
So if you're an ally of the West, you get to kill kids?
No. You get
support. So why is it relevant?
You're
making my point for me, Piers. I'm consistent. I don't care whether you're an ally of the West or an enemy of the West.
Fine.
I care about what you do.
Yes.
And Russia and Israel both committing war crimes, both saying genocidal stuff.
But Mehdi, here's my point. You are so blindly anti-Israel that you frame everything...
I could say the same thing to you about Russia.
I'm very blindly against Russia.
Okay,
yes.
that's again. So you're inconsistent.
Are you
I'm I'm consistent. I'm blindly anti-occupying Russia that occupies Ukraine, and I'm blindly anti an Israel that occupies Gaza. By the way, another area I'm consistent is I do think both wars need to come to an end, and they're going to come to an end through some sort of negotiation. I don't believe in prolonged conflict. I don't know. I'm not a negotiator.
What's
I
the
don't
negotiation in Ukraine?
I don't believe there's a military solution to either conflict.
Give me the solution.
I don't have one. Do you have a military solution? I don't think there is one.
We can't possibly give Putin what he's taken.
No, I agree.
So how do you do it?
I don't know, but I don't think the military continuing helps. I mean, how do you win militarily? I don't know how that works.
Would you have said that in World War II?
What do you mean?
When the Nazis were trying to take over the world?
No, there was a plausible plan to win, wasn't there, when the US came in?
Just to fight them.
And there were no nuclear weapons back then, Piers, as you know.
Okay, but you just think Putin would ever use them?
Do you not think he would?
No. Why would he? He's not an Islamic fundamentalist who wants to blow himself up.
Oh, that's a very racist thing to say.
It's not.
You're saying only Muslims want to use nuclear weapons?
No, I said
What?
Islamic.
Why would Putin not want to use?
I say Muslim. I said Islamic fundamentalist.
Why is it Islamic fundamentalist?
Because Islamic fundamentalists kill themselves to get what they want.
But they haven't used nukes. The only people who've used nukes in history are the United States of America.
You're missing my point deliberately, and you're playing.
No, because I just find
and
these
you're playing
weird
the race card stupidly.
You're playing weird asides, Piers. You're bringing in Western allies.
I'm answering your question about whether I thought Russia would use nukes. No, because
the only people who would are Islamic fundamentalists.
They do not behave.
Western centric.
He does not think like an Islamic fundamentalist, where they will kill themselves to get their goals.
You know, the United States of America used a nuclear weapon, Piers, right? They're not Islamic fundamentalists.
You're missing my point. The point is, Islamic fundamentalists will kill themselves in the process of destroying others. Russia does not want to do that. Vladimir Putin doesn't want to kill himself.
Fair point.
Right? So my point about the nuclear threats, which he does all the time, is he takes what should be a deterrent. Look, we shouldn't have nuclear weapons, right? Period. But we do. Russia has 6,000.
As does Israel.
Russia has 6. I'm sure they do. And I put that question to Netanyahu, and he fudged it. But I'm sure, of course, they do. Right? But the point is, I don't think that the mindset of someone like Vladimir Putin is to start a war where he gets instantly vaporized. Makes no sense to me. So I think he uses it as a threat, and a lot of people in the West go like this and go, oh my God, we can't do anything. We must let him continue what he's doing because he might nuke us. And I think he's been doing this now for years, and we've got to stand up to him because he's never going to use nuclear weapons, because he knows the moment he does, Russia and him are dead. And he doesn't think in the way that Al-Qaeda or ISIS or one of these groups do, where they don't mind dying in big numbers to blow things up.
It's a very fair argument. I respect that argument.
That's my point.
That's a fair argument. I respect that argument. I'm saying I'm not willing to take that risk. I would like to see the Ukraine conflict come to an end.
So would I.
In Ukraine's favour.
Yeah, but how?
I don't know. I'm not pretending to know the solution.
But with respect, and I do respect you, with respect, simply saying, I just want peace and harmony.
You don't have a solution to Ukraine either.
I do.
What is it?
Support them.
That's not a solution.
No, it is.
No, it is. What's the end goal?
You give them the tools that they're asking for to repel Russia long enough that Russia goes, all right, enough.
And there's nobody agrees that Russia's going to give up Crimea. No one's ever going to agree.
I didn't say Crimea.
That's part of Ukraine. You said don't give up any Ukrainian territory.
Crimea, to me, has already been sorted. I'm talking about I don't think anything they can do about
that. Good. Well, we agree
right?
on that then.
But I do think that the area of the Donbass...
Yes. But they've been annexed as well, unfortunately.
They should not be allowed to take that as well. If they do, they'll never stop.
I agree with you. I don't think they should be allowed to take it, but I don't see a military solution. But I'm not a military expert. But the people I read say there's no way the Russians...
What do you think is the solution in the Middle East with Israel? I get the argument, give up occupation. Okay.
Yes.
All right. On that we agree. Okay? But Israel will only do that, and this has the vast support of their people. They'll only do this if they feel that they can get security out of the situation. They'll only allow a two-state solution. I mean, do you believe in a two-state solution?
I don't believe in any solutions, right? I don't talk about 1 state, 2 states, 3 states, because all of it is nonsense. All of it is pie in the sky. None of it's happening. My position is I want equality for Palestinians and Israelis, Jews, Muslims, Christians living in that part of the world.
Exactly the same human rights for all.
Exactly.
On that, I agree with you.
I don't care about the structures. I don't care what the name of the place is, what the government looks like. I want equality between the river and the sea, to use a phrase, for everyone living in that patch of land. No one's leaving. I don't believe any of those people are going anywhere. They're all staying. They all have to live side by side as equals. I'm a Democrat, small d Democrat. I believe it should be a democracy. But fundamentally, right now, I'm only concerned about one thing: stop the killing, stop the genocide.
Do you agree that Hamas could play no part in any government going forward?
Which government?
On the Palestinian side,
like in a final settlement?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there would ever be a final settlement government. I don't think anyone would agree to that. I agree. Yes.
So
if there was a kind of 1 state solution, which some people talk about, which is everyone binationally living side by side, of course not. If there's 2 states and the Palestinians were to choose a coalition government involving Hamas, well, that's up to the Palestinians, is it not?
Let's go to something else. I think we're in fun agreement. The Al Jazeera raid, because you work for Al Jazeera. I thought that was disgraceful. And I think actually, when you take it in the context of what Israel's been doing in really prohibiting almost any foreign correspondence going into Gaza as well, you're seeing a genuine suppression of media and press freedom. And to actually shut down Al Jazeera studio in Ramallah, I thought was an absolutely outrageous attack on free speech. I mean, I presume you agree.
100%.
And
it's outrageous that there's no foreign journalists allowed into Gaza a year in.
Yeah.
What do they have to hide?
Well, exactly. That's my point. That is my point. I totally agree with you.
But that's why I say when you say liberal democracy, I laugh. That's not how a liberal democracy behaves.
Well, no liberal democracy is perfect. We're not here. As you and I would agree about, for example.
But there's a difference between a liberal democracy not meeting standards and behaving in this way, which is complete censorship. You see what's happening in Israel, where kids are being pulled out of school just for criticising what's happening in Gaza, TED teachers, academics. It's not liberal democracy in any way. Separately, going back years, the way Israel is constructed, Palestinians do not have the same rights as Israel.
Who would be a better president for resolving what's happening in the Middle East, Trump or Harris?
That's the hardest question you asked me today, harder than anything else.
I know. So I've seen what you said about it.
I think they're both hopeless. I think John Mearsheimer made a good point about Tweedledee and Tweedledum on the Middle East.
But one of them is going to have to win.
Yeah, who do I think is less bad? They're both horrible on this story.
That's a different question.
Well, they're both horrible.
I phrased it very specifically, so you would find it hard to answer.
I know, so go on, can you say it again?
Well, the question is, which one is more likely to be able to help resolve the Middle East crisis?
Okay, so...
Trump or Harris?
Harris, simply because she's a sane, reasonable person. But I don't believe she will resolve it. I'm going to add the caveat. I'm not saying there's going to be some two-state solution in a Harris term, no. But is she more likely? If you're asking me as a betting man, I'm a Muslim, I don't bet. But is she more likely? Yeah, Harris. Obviously, she's more likely to do anything productive because he's the most unproductive, ridiculous figure to ever come near higher office in the history of America.
He's had 2 assassination attempts on his life. The second one, who obviously is still alive, he wrote a note, assuming he might get killed in the process of killing Trump, in which he basically rattled off a series of Democrat talking points. I mean, literally word for word in some cases from what Harris has said and so on. I'm not blaming Kamala Harris for what happened. He's a lunatic.
He's a lunatic. And he invited Kim Jong-un to Hawaii.
Right, and the Secret Service should have stopped him way before he ever got to where he got to.
And Trump shouldn't be playing so much golf as well.
Well, actually, he plays as much golf as Obama.
The Secret Service have asked him to reduce it because it is a security risk.
Because they can't protect him, which is disgusting,
and I'm not
in my opinion.
The Secret Service.
But when you see somebody using specific talking points and you see the rhetoric being used, we've had the debate before about the left calling him Hitler and so on. But I do genuinely...
Not the left. J.D. Vance called him Hitler, his running mate.
I accepted that point.
Good.
But no one should. In my estimation, likening Trump to someone who killed 12 million people in World War II is ridiculous and dangerous. And in the wrong, dangerous minds, lunatic minds, this is where you end up. On both sides, Trump's rhetoric is often terrible. Let's agree with that. But as someone on the left yourself, do you not think that there has to be a dialing down of the blind hatred rhetoric about Trump?
So I'm going to say the same thing I said to you last time, which is I wish we didn't have to raise the rhetoric. I agree with you to a point that if you say certain things about certain people, of course I do. I'm on the left. I think if you dehumanize people, I'm the one who says migrant attacks because of Trump's rhetoric. So I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say that rhetoric leads to things. Yes, of course it does. I'm not one of these free speech absolutely says words have no feeling, sticks and so. No, words lead to actions, words lead to violence, clearly. So yes, in any scenario where we can dial down any incitement of violence, completely agree. I get very uncomfortable, for example, at now Democratic rallies, people are shouting, lock him up, which I don't agree with. Right?
Well, it's total hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy. Put him, he's on trial. If he's going to be locked up, let a court and a jury do it. I don't think crowds should be shouting that. It's not a helpful contribution.
Do you feel comfortable?
That makes me wince.
He's a convicted criminal because of a one-night stand with a porn star.
That's not why.
Did you feel comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with the trial that Alvin Bragg done. I'm comfortable with the grand jury that indicted him. I'm comfortable with the jury of his peers that convicted him. But
you can't be comfortable.
And I'm actually, what I'm uncomfortable with is that a bunch of his own judges now are protecting him from justice elsewhere. That makes America look like a quote-unquote banana republic. You know, you and I live in the UK. You don't get to go pick your own judge.
I actually thought the way that the
Florida thing is ridiculous.
I thought the way the Democrats weaponized the justice system to go after Trump.
I wish they had. They didn't actually. They spent years dragging their feet. Merrick Garland was the most useless AG.
They made him a convicted criminal over a one-night stand with a porn star 18 years before.
A jury of his peers
should never have been put to a jury.
Let me answer your original question about violence, but since we sidetracked, a jury of his peers convicted him. Back to this, on the rhetoric, I wish I didn't have to compare Donald Trump to Hitler. But when he quotes the lines from Mein Kampf, as a journalist...
Come on, Mehdi.
As a journalist, should I not point out that?
You shouldn't compare him to Hitler because he's not Hitler.
Okay, so what should I do? So I'm a journalist. Donald Trump says immigrants are poisoning our blood. I go look in history, who's the only person who said that? Hitler. Should I not tell my viewers on Piers Morgan Uncensored? Should I go, can't tell them that?
No, you
so
can
what should I
say you can say he shouldn't use language like that.
Can I say he's quoting Adolf Hitler?
You can't say he's the new Hitler.
I haven't called him the new Hitler.
Right.
I've never called him the new
Hitler.
Hitler.
Accept the people who
but
say
I'm allowed.
that.
But you say I'm allowed to say he's quoting Hitler.
You can, if he uses a direct sentence, which you can chart back to
it's almost directly the same.
That's absolutely fair enough. But the idea that there is any comparison between Trump and
of
Hitler
course not. Hitler is Hitler. We know that.
Is appalling.
Hitler is Hitler.
Do you agree it's appalling?
No, but I want to qualify what you're saying. Hitler,
you agree it's appalling?
What is appalling?
To compare him to Hitler.
To compare him to Hitler in what sense, though?
They're calling him the new Hitler.
Yes, and no, don't call him the new Hitler.
Is that appalling?
Oh my God, I'm not playing the silly game.
Give me a word.
I don't want you to put your words.
Give me a condemnatory word.
I think it's not accurate to say he's the new Hitler because Hitler killed 12 million people. Yeah, it's not true.
Not offensive.
But if you let me finish the sentence, I speak to a lot of fascism scholars, people like Ruth Ben-Ghiat, Jason Stanley. A lot of people say that there is an analogy between what Trump is doing in America now and what happened in places like Germany in the 20s and 30s.
No,
right? I respect your opinion. I respect your opinion that you don't think it is.
Well, give me an example.
I'm not having that argument right now. I'm trying to make a separate point, which is if fascism scholars are saying we look at history and we make comparisons, they are scholars of fascism and they're saying, hey, hold on, the rhetoric is very similar. The way they're operating is very similar. That is it. That, first of all, free speech, they should be allowed to say that.
You said Trump
used to be the free speech champion.
I am.
And then you sit there regulating everyone's speech.
I'm not
Say it's appalling.
I'm not regulating. No, I'm asking you.
You literally just told me.
Call
it appalling.
That's not regulating what you're saying. It's asking you, can you bring it in yourself to condemn people who say he's the new Hitler?
I don't know who those people are. J.D. Vance called him the new Hitler, and he's his running mate. So take it up with J.D. Vance.
Condemn him as well.
Call him on your show.
But you condemn anyone on the left who uses it too, right?
Uses what, though?
Who says he's the new Hitler? Specifically.
Those specific words, the new Hitler, yes.
Okay.
Is he speaking like Hitler? Yes, he is. Okay. And that should be condemned. Do you condemn him speaking like Hitler?
Yes.
Does that not outrage you?
Of course.
He's like your pal. Why don't you tell him to stop it?
Of course.
Have you ever told him to stop quoting Hitler?
Yes, probably. I can't remember the last interview I did was before or after, but if I do again, I will. Yes, of course.
Good. And hosting a Holocaust dinner at Mar-a-Lago?
But yes, Nick Fuentes, absolutely.
Have you told him to stop doing that?
I said it on Twitter to him. Don't let white supremacists anywhere near you. Why are you doing that?
No, that's not condemnation. That's a question.
I think it's condemn it. It's disgusting.
It's appalling.
It's appalling.
Good.
We're in
agreement.
You're trying to regulate my speech.
I love when we agree.
You said Trump called for the ethnic cleansing of legal immigrants in the United States. No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
What did he say?
He said he wanted to deport illegal immigrants.
No, he didn't actually.
Yes, he did.
Piers, you're wrong.
That's what he said.
Again, anyone can play the tape after his interview. You're wrong. You should do better homework.
Ethnic cleansing is the forced expulsion,
I love your team.
Usually involving killing of members of a specific religious or ethnic group.
Hold on.
That's what ethnic cleansing is.
I really like your team. I deal with them a lot when I come in there. But you should talk to whoever did your research, because that's wrong. You know what he said? Go watch the clip. It's on tape. He said, we've got to get rid of them from Springfield.
Yeah.
Who are the people in Springfield? Haitians. They are not illegal immigrants.
So it's interesting, Springfield.
Hold on, no, don't jump around. You just got something wrong.
I'm going to mention I didn't get it wrong.
No, you did. We could play the tape back. He said illegal immigrants. That's not true. He said Haitians should be... You've got to get rid of them.
You said, Mehdi, let me just go back
No, you said...
Hang on, let me clarify what you said.
Please clarify what you said.
You said his policy is calling for the ethnic
cleansing. I didn't say policy. It's a phrase on Twitter. If you're going to police my tweets, then fine.
Well, you said that Trump has called for the ethnic cleansing of legal immigrants.
The violent, forcible removal of legal immigrants, I think, is a form of ethnic cleansing.
That's not his position.
But
his position is that there should be mass deportation of illegal
Wrong. The clip is online. Everybody, I don't know what camera to look at.
Things.
No, you are, because my tweet was over that clip. So anyone can go look, and you guys got it wrong. I looked at a clip of him saying, you got to get rid of them in Springfield.
Different story. Different thing.
But that's what I'm tweeting about, Piers. You don't get to misrepresent my tweets. But that's not what he's
talking about with the mass deportation.
Yes, he is. He was talking about Springfield.
No,
he said Springfield.
No, he talked...
Have you watched the clip?
Yes, I've watched many clips.
But the clip that my tweet is on.
Well, you're
wrong, Piers. I get it. You can back down and say
So you think he wants ethnic cleansing of Haitians in Springfield?
What he wants... I don't try and get inside a madman's head.
You call that ethnic cleansing?
I'm not... If he tries to violently remove...
Think he wants to kill them?
Can I finish a sentence? If he wants to violently remove legal immigrants from their homes, yeah, I think that's a form of ethnic cleansing, yes. Based on their ethnicity or identity, 100%.
Do you think it's right in Springfield?
Do you think it's right to call for the deportation of legal immigrants? No, you cut me off.
It is technically my show.
And you misrepresented my tweet, which you haven't corrected yet. My tweet was in reference to legal immigrants. You said illegal. So you should walk that back. You said it to all your viewers. That was wrong.
But you said that he effectively has a policy.
No, I said, no, Piers, don't misrepresent
me. Is it a policy?
I said, in this clip, he's calling for the ethnic cleansing. It's a quote above a clip. It's a quote tweet. You should check your tweets when you put them in your document.
Do you think that's what he's doing, though? Ethnically cleansing?
Yes, if he's calling for the deportation of legal immigrants based on their ethnicity, yes.
Do you think
he's called it a bloody operation? Are you okay with 14 million people being violently removed from their homes?
Are you?
4 million American children losing
let me
their
ask you a
parents?
question.
It's outrageous.
Are you okay with the situation on the southern border with so many illegal people coming in illegally?
No, I'm not.
So presumably you're a legal migrant to America.
Yes, I am.
Right, so everyone has gone through the process like you.
But whether you're
Aren't they
legal or
entitled-
undocumented, you shouldn't be violently removed. And by the way, the southern border situation is a very complicated situation. It's been going on for years. Multiple presidents, multiple parties. There's no easy
But you would
fix.
concede under the Democrats it's been a fiasco.
No. Why
Come
would I
on.
concede that?
Really? The numbers in the last 3.5 years?
And they were really bad under George Bush, if we go back. I mean, it's
Who
a
was the
multi-party.
biggest-
It's a multi. To make this into a party thing is ridiculous. In fact, last time I came on your show, you tried to do a gotcha on me and said Obama was the deporter.
Yeah, he was.
So clearly, Democrats aren't bad. They're on your side. They're deporters.
On that,
You can't have it both ways.
Interesting you
Piers.
raise the Obama thing.
You
because
can't have it both ways, can you?
when Obama deported 3 million migrants, presumably then, was he ethnically cleansing them?
If they were undocumented, that's very different, isn't it? You're legally... Look, again, to go back to our discussion about Israel-Hamas.
So is ethnic cleansing
Hold on,
if Trump's doing
now
it?
who's cutting me off?
If-
Something can be
If
legal...
Trump's doing it, it's ethnic cleansing.
No.
If Obama's doing it, it's perfectly okay.
I'm well known for speaking a lot. I can say my own words. You don't need to put words in my mouth. I'm saying, what I said earlier about Israel, you can do something that's legal, but I still think it's wrong. So what Obama did was legal, right? He didn't break any laws. He was entitled to deport, but I thought it was wrong, unwise, unhelpful, counterproductive, unfair. That's a different argument. What Trump would be doing is taking people who are here legally and suggesting that they get out. You know, when they go after 14 million people, Piers, you're a very experienced journalist. You've covered many political issues around the world. There's no scenario in which the American bureaucracy goes house to house to look for 14 million people and doesn't end up getting innocent people, green card holders, legal immigrants, just people who look brown or have a Spanish name and getting them as well. You know this. It's going to be a disaster, Piers. So next time you talk to your pals, tell them not to do it.
On Springfield, do you think it's...
I think what happened in Springfield is outrageous. If you condemn the incitement of violence there by Trump. New Hitler. He shut down an entire town, 30 bomb threats.
Actually,
it's disgusting.
There weren't 30 bomb threats.
And it turned out that's what the local authorities
all the bomb threats, all of them, came from what they now believe were bots and pranksters. And all of them. And nothing to do with Trump.
Nothing to do with Trump. So why did it happen? Why did it happen straight after we spoke?
They were literally, the mayor has said, actually, it turned out these were not
inspired. You know what the mayor said?
by
You know what the mayor said? He said Trump's words are harming us. That's what he said. He's harming our community.
I'll tell you what does harm me.
Why don't you condemn that, Piers?
Can I please ask you a question about Springfield? I have condemned the ridiculous Haitian migrants reading cats and dogs without any evidence.
It's not just ridiculous,
right?
Dangerous.
It's wrong. There is a wider and more interesting and nuanced debate to be had, which unfortunately got completely destroyed by the cats and dogs bullshit, which is this. When you put into a place like Springfield, I had this with Vivek Ramaswamy, who's from that area. Yeah. When you suddenly change the makeup of that town by putting 20% of the entire population becomes one community, brought in Haitians in that case. I've seen lots of people in the area say the Haitians have been great for working and economy and so on. Great. But it also brings with it, as we've seen in the UK, when you radically change the makeup of towns, it can have a real effect on what that town is for people, on the effect on infrastructure, on the effect on schools and hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. Do you accept that this has to be handled carefully?
Yes.
And that actually putting 20% of the population into somewhere like Springfield inherently is a very tricky scenario.
So this is what worries me about you, Piers, because you ask good questions, you have these important discussions, but the framing, and my friend Brian Tyler Cohen said this to you a couple of days ago, your framing is very right-wing.
Why?
So when you say,
why is it right-wing?
I'm telling you. You said twice there, they put 20,000, who put them? Nobody put 20,000 people there. They went there voluntarily. They went there at the invitation of the local town. Do you know the local town put an ad in a paper saying, please come to our town, it's in decline, we need labour. And they went and they helped the town. And the local factory managers and the local mayor of all, as you say, they've all come out and praised them. I actually find uncomfortable that rhetoric because I think immigrants should be valued regardless whether they're hard workers. But look, people have come and said they're hard workers, they attend the local church, they're integrated in the town, there hasn't been a crime wave associated with it. When J.D. Vance uses, and here we go, Nazi-like rhetoric and says they're bringing disease, which is what Die Stürmer used to say about Jewish people, I find that horrible. And who put 20,000 people? Nobody put 20,000 people there. They went there for jobs. Does that cause unease? I'm sure it does. Does it radically transform a neighborhood? I'm sure it does. Should the federal government and state government be helping communities that are dealing with migrant influence? Of course they should. I'm on the left, Piers. I want higher taxes, more government spending. You're going after the wrong guy. I want more infrastructure.
Actually, I wasn't going after you. I was just asking you.
No, we agree.
Exactly.
You and I both agree there should be better infrastructure. The federal government should support these areas.
And better help with the integration process. Because I think often that's where the real problems start.
Agreed. But both ways, right? Integration, as David Cameron once said, is a two-way street.
Yeah.
You don't want racists repelling new people, and you want new people understanding the ways of the world.
Yes.
Agreed. But what you don't want is a presidential candidate going on TV and just making up insane stories about immigrants eating. It disqualifies you from the race. I don't know how you went on and on about Joe Biden's age and dementia, and yet you have, here's a guy who went on TV. If Joe Biden had got on TV and said people eating your pets, you would have condemned him straight away.
I condemned Trump straight away.
No, you would have said get out of the race. You haven't said Trump should get out of the race. Say it now. Say Trump, get out of the race. You're too old and nuts and
I don't believe he should get out of the race.
Why? He just said eating pets. If Rishi Sunak had said that, or Keir Starmer, we would all said get out of the race. But in America, for some reason, we give Trump a pass. We grade him on a curve. We treat him like a man-child.
What about when Kamala Harris deliberately misquotes him and tries to pretend that he said if he doesn't win there'll be a bloodbath? When everybody,
he did say bloodbath.
When everybody knows he was specifically talking about a bloodbath in the automobile industry.
Well, he was. I don't have time to get into all that. I don't agree with that. But just on your wider premise of Harris, even if I accept that she misquoted him, you and I both know there's normal politics where politicians lie, exaggerate, do hyperbole, do gotchas. We all know everyone does that. Democrats, Republicans, Labour, Conservative. You know that's not the same thing as a old man going on stage and screaming at the audience, they're eating your pets.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
I agree.
There's no comparison. There's nothing like that from Harris, Biden, Starmer, Sunak, anyone.
But I also think it's far worse to say he's the new Hitler.
Did Kamala Harris say he's the new Hitler?
No, but a lot of Democratic politicians have used that language.
What about Trump's language?
What you're saying
hold on, what about Trump's language?
Does that make it disqualifying for them as well?
No, okay, hold on. Yes. Okay,
any Democrat politician that says the new Hitler, disqualified.
Hold on.
They're kicked out of office.
I'm about to answer your question. Agree. Do you believe that a presidential candidate should not call the other person a Hitler?
Yeah.
Okay.
Including that.
Trump has called Kamala Harris a fascist, communist, Marxist. Harris has not called Trump a fascist, as far as I'm aware. I wish she would. But
I think she has, actually.
I don't think she has, but she hasn't since she became the candidate. So the person who's doing the incendiary rhetoric is Trump. He called Biden the Gestapo. Do you agree with that? Do you think Biden is the Gestapo?
No.
Well, that's what he called Biden. He said it's a Gestapo administration. I didn't hear you condemn Trump for that.
No, but I do know that there have been 2 attempts on one of the candidates' lives, and both times.
You don't know how many. You don't know what's going on with Harris or what's going to happen. She's a black woman. You don't think there's going to be death threats against Kamala Harris?
There have been no attempts on her life.
You don't think?
Are you aware of any attempts on her life?
I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know. We didn't know. Hold on. We didn't know about many death threats against Obama till very recently.
The threats is one thing. Actually trying to kill somebody.
They arrested someone just the other day for death threats against, I think, Biden or Harris. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's not be. Come on, Piers. There's death threats.
Who's going to win the election?
I have no idea.
Who do you think?
I don't do predictions.
Really?
No, not after Brexit and Trump. In 2016, I got both wrong. So
you accept you're the worst predictor out there?
I mean, a lot of people got. Did you get Brexit and Trump right?
I got Trump right.
Okay.
2016. Brexit, I didn't know. I don't think I made a call. I voted Remain, but I actually was quite happy if Brexit worked.
America's too close and the Electoral College is too stupid, and that's a conversation for another day.
Mehdi, it's great to see you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed finally meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Come back.
And when they find 1,000 bottles of baby oil and 500 dildos, there's some suspect activity happening, Piers.
It's like you pass by the door and see a party in an apartment, you go in, you have a drink, and then you go home and realize Jeffrey Dahmer was eating and killing people.
Some women went there thinking, oh, we're gonna have a freak off.
The fact that we as a society, we got mad for a week, money talks, and bullshit walks.
Esther, please bear with me. We all know that there are pass-arounds.
Someone like P. Diddy, I'm sorry, it should be the guillotine.
If that was my daughter and I saw that on camera, it would have been a wrap for Diddy.